Hey, I'm glad you made it. We wouldn't start without you. It's time for An Apple Fritter. Here's your host, Jimmy Apple.
Welcome to another episode of An Apple a Day's The Fritter. I'm your host, Jimmy Apple. How you feeling today, my friends? You feeling good? You feeling strong? You feeling better than you did yesterday? Excellent. You can't ask for better than that. Well, let me ask you something. Do you know what a nephrologist does? Do you know what an oncologist does? Do you know what your PCP does? Do you know what a dietitian does? How about a nutritionist? Everybody has a specialty, but which is right for you? If your doctor told you tomorrow that you're pre-diabetic and the way to handle the pre-diabetes is by diet, who would you see? Would you see a dietitian or would you see a nutritionist? Where do you think you would get the better information from, a dietitian or a nutritionist? Who do you think would be covered by your insurance or Medicare or Medicaid? Do you think a dietitian or a nutritionist? You'd be surprised by the answer to that. You'd be surprised who is more formally educated, who can give you a better answer to your questions about your diet and what's healthy for you to eat, what's the right food to put in your body for the energy that you're going to need to fight something like diabetes or to power your body. It's not as easy as you think. I always thought it was kind of cut and dry myself, to be honest with you, but it's not. It's a science. I want you to listen to what Dave has to tell you today, because you might be very, very surprised by the answer. The difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist is miles. They're miles apart. Sit back and relax and listen to what Dave has to tell us about dietitian versus nutritionist.
Dietitians versus nutritionists. What's the difference? So many words get tossed around when it comes to different types of doctors and other healthcare providers. What exactly does an endocrinologist do? And what's otolaryngology again? When it comes to people who specialize in diet and nutrition, two titles commonly come up, but it turns out there are important distinctions between them. I'm talking about dietitians versus nutritionists. There are relevant differences between these two titles, and reasons to be mindful of who's doling out advice about the best eating plan for you. All dietitians are nutritionists, but not all nutritionists are dietitians, explains registered dietitian Amber Summer, RD, LD. If you're looking for science-backed, expert advice on healthy eating, how do you know who to turn to? The differences between dietitians and nutritionists. The distinction between a dietitian and a nutritionist is a matter of education and training. Dietitians are recognized medical professionals. It's a title reserved for people who complete specific education and licensure requirements. You can be confident a dietitian is an expert in matters related to the best eating plan for you and how to use food to fuel your body in a healthy way. And your insurance may cover visits to a dietitian. Nutritionists, on the other hand, are a self-proclaimed title. There aren't any requirements about who can or can't use it. They typically aren't covered by insurance because they're not recognized as health professionals. Nutritionists may or may not have formal training in the field. Some nutritionists may have completed some education related to diet or food science. They may have some experience counseling people about food and healthy eating habits. Or they may just have a passing interest in the field. It's something like the difference between your friend who owns a set of clippers and a licensed barber. Sure, you can get a haircut either way, but you can be more confident in the skills the barber brings to the table. Anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. It's not a title that implies any professional accreditation, Summer clarifies. Being a dietitian means you've completed the requirements set by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics to provide nutrition counseling and medical nutrition therapy. You'll find dietitians in a variety of work settings, including hospitals and doctors' offices, nursing homes, community health and wellness organizations, like gyms and recreation centers, food service organizations, food and beverage companies, pharmaceutical companies, government organizations. Requirements to be a dietitian. You can be sure you're talking with a dietitian if there's an RD or RDN following their name, which stand for Registered Dietitian or Registered Dietitian Nutritionist. Those credentials mean they've fulfilled the hefty educational requirements to have earned the title of a registered dietitian. Some states require registered dietitians to also be licensed. That's why you may also see the letters LD. Licensed dietitian, in addition to the RD. The requirements to become a registered dietitian in the U.S. include: earn a bachelor's degree from an accredited dietetics program. Master's degree will be required effective January 1, 2024. Complete at least 1,000 hours of supervised practice. Pass the national exam, and obtain licensure if required by your state. Earn a certain amount of continuing education hours each 5-year cycle. Commit to following a code of ethics specific to their profession. You can call yourself a nutritionist without having taken any of those steps. In addition to earning RD and LD credentials, some registered dietitians may complete specialized training to be able to better counsel people with specific nutrition goals or health conditions. Each of those certifications may come with extra letters after their name, too. Some dietitians may earn certifications in specialties like sports dietetics, CSSD, gerontological nutrition, CSG, pediatric nutrition, CSP, obesity and weight management, CSOWM, diabetes care and education, CDCES. Some certification programs may be open to people who aren't registered dietitians. So, a nutritionist could hold some certifications. But if the certifications they list in their name don't include an RD or RDN, that's a clue you're not talking with a dietitian. Why would you visit a dietitian? Dietitians work with people to help them meet their personalized nutrition needs. They help design meal plans, as well as provide counseling to help people manage chronic conditions, improve their relationship with food and live healthier lives. A dietitian can help you create nutritional goals and stick to them. You might consider seeing a dietitian if you have been diagnosed with a chronic condition that requires a change in your eating habits, such as diabetes, heart disease or kidney disease. Are living with food allergies or believe you may have a food allergy or intolerance. Want to lose or gain weight. Are an athlete seeking advice for optimal nutrition and performance. Are living with an eating disorder. Have concerns about whether your diet is providing proper nutrition. Should you see a dietitian or a nutritionist? Where you seek help matters. Especially if you're living with a condition that affects your eating habits. If you want to be sure you're getting the best evidence-based advice from a professional in the field, a dietitian is always going to be your best bet, Summer advises. But that's not to say some people who haven't completed the specialized training it requires to be a dietitian don't have anything to offer. If you seek counseling from a nutritionist instead of a dietitian, start by asking a few questions before taking their advice wholesale. Your health is important, so you don't want to put it in the hands of just anyone. I found this interesting and informative. I hope you did as well. I'm gonna pass this back over to Jimmy. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks a lot, Dave. That was very informative. And I want to thank you, the listener, for being here today. I really do appreciate it. And I want to remind you, we have a guest coming up on the podcast, Spencer Bishins. He's the author of the book, Social Security Disability Revealed: Why It's So Hard to Get Access to Benefits and What You Can Do About It. Now, that book came out a while ago, and you're probably saying, Jimmy, I heard this before. Is this a repeat? No. Spencer's coming back on the show to answer more questions, and he's celebrating the release of the audiobook version of his book. And while he's here, he's giving out a couple of copies free. That's right, free, of his audiobook to people who ask questions. So send in your questions. You can send them direct messenger to me on Facebook, or you can email them to me at jimmy@famousapple.com, and you may end up getting a free copy of this book. Believe me, I read the book. I went out and I bought this book. I read it. The book is excellent. The audiobook is even easier. It's summertime. You're going to be going on road trips. You can pop it in the car while you're driving or while you're sitting out in the sun. You can listen to the book, and it's going to answer your questions. It's that good. So take a chance and listen to the show when it comes up. Listen to this podcast. I'll let you know when Spencer's going to be on. It's going to be in the next few weeks. So send your questions in. In the meantime, remember, we also have our own group page on Facebook. It's called Living with a Disability. The address for the page will be in the show notes for this episode, along with our chat group for the podcast itself. You want to go on there, critique the podcast. You want to give suggestions for the podcast. Maybe you want to be a guest on the podcast. Go to Apple Chat. That's an Apple a Day chat. Again, the address will be in the show notes for this episode. And I want to remind you something. No one ever went blind by looking at things from the bright side, my friends. So give it a shot. What do you got to lose, right? Hey, you've been listening to An Apple Fritter. And my name is Jimmy Apple. And I'm going to talk to you again real soon. Have a great one, my friends.
Join Jimmy tomorrow for another apple fritter. In the meantime, stop over at our YouTube group page, Living with a Disability, join in the conversation and make some new friends. See you next time.